Hi everyone, I thought I would make a short video on the STEEL model because I know that a lot of people have been missing a lot of classes and they are a little bit behind, and also that some people are still a little bit confused as to what the different letters in the STEEL model stand for, how they can use that to construct their speeches, and how you can actually convert your tables into STEEL paragraphs. So I thought I would just make a video to run through that again. Then you can rewatch it and pause it whenever you need to, and hopefully I will be covering all of the questions that you have. All right, so let's get started. So just to revise again, the S in the STEEL model stands for statement, which is just another way of saying topic sentence. And your topic sentence has a really important role to play in the overall paragraph, in that it introduces the main idea that your paragraph will actually cover. So your topic sentence shouldn't be too detailed. It should be quite short and very general. Don't give away too much specific information. You should be mentioning the key idea of the paragraph, perhaps the name of your text, and the sort of the theme that your text is covering in this instance. Now the next letter in the STEEL model is for technique, obviously, and what I would recommend for you guys in year 10 at this point, you probably shouldn't be talking about more than 2 to 3 techniques for each quote or each example that you refer to as evidence that supports your topic sentence or supports the main idea in your topic sentence. So just make sure that you're not trying to talk about too many techniques, because I am noticing in students' drafts that they are listing, 5 or 6 different techniques. And while that is impressive that you know all of those techniques, you really can't discuss 6 different techniques in a lot of depth or detail. So it's better if you actually limit yourself to maybe 2, 3 techniques at the most in every example that you're talking about, because then you can talk about those techniques and how they are used to communicate your theme or your main idea in a lot more detail. Now, as we have discussed in class, I think it's actually best if you find your evidence or you find your example first of all, because that is what is really going to convince your reader that you know what you're talking about, that the point that you've made in your topic sentence is actually valid and something worth listening to. So what I would recommend is that you write your topic sentence first, establish what your main idea is, then find your example or your evidence. Once you actually have the example, then you will be able to analyze that specific part of the text and decide, what are the strongest techniques that are being used in that example that actually are communicating the main idea that you have stated in your topic sentence. So it's really, really important that every part of your paragraph links back to that topic sentence, because it should be communicating the main idea of the entire paragraph. Also, it's really important that you remember, when it comes to written text, obviously you will quote maybe a line of poetry, or you might quote some dialogue or a description from a novel. But when it comes to visual text, it's really, really important that you actually describe the visual language features. So for example, in film, don't just quote the dialogue and then talk about things like metaphor and symbolism. Those techniques are the domain of written texts. If you're choosing to analyze a film, then you should absolutely be talking about film techniques, because that is the key language of that textual form. So make sure that you're talking about things like close-ups and long shots and diegetic sound and costuming, those sorts of things. Moving on to the effect part of the paragraph, the second E of the STEEL model. This is where the largest part of your paragraph should actually come from. So make sure that you are actually explaining the effect of these techniques in detail. So you must explain how those techniques are used in the example that you have chosen to communicate the ideas in your topic sentence. So you are explaining your thinking process to the audience, why that simile is an example of Australian cultural identity, or why that metaphor tells us something about belonging. And make sure that you explain your ideas clearly and in detail, and refer to specific parts of the quote or the scene that you are using as evidence. So lastly, the link. From what I've heard, this is actually giving people a lot of confusion. It's causing a lot of confusion, and that did surprise me, because the link is actually one of the easiest parts of the paragraph to write. At this point, I don't think it's absolutely necessary for your linking sentence to lead on to the next paragraph, but by all means have a go at that if you wish. What your linking sentence should actually do is restate the ideas that you have put forward in your topic sentence. The easiest way for you to write your linking sentence is just to reword the topic sentence, so don't overthink this one. At this point, I'll be really happy if you are just repeating the ideas that you've said at the very beginning of your paragraph, but just make sure you change the wording so you're not sounding too repetitive. So now that we've revised the different letters of the STEEL model, I thought it would be useful for us to go back and have a look at the example of the completed STEEL table that I showed you that I used with my Year 11 Advanced class. Now, I know some people have actually said that they're finding this confusing because obviously you haven't studied the poem Felix Janetsky, but the way that the table has been completed and the ideas that it's talking about, the way that the different elements of the STEEL model actually transfer into a paragraph, those ideas are transferable. They are things that you should be able to apply to any type of text or any concept that you're studying once you have actually gotten a hang of the basics. All right, so just to start off with, and to remind you again, so the topic sentence is the first sentence of your paragraph, and it introduces the main idea of what the remainder of the body paragraph will actually be about, or any paragraph. So the example here is that having a strong sense of one's own identity is inextricably connected to feeling a strong sense of belonging. It's just the main idea that the paragraph will be about, and this is the point that I'm trying to prove with the remainder of the evidence that I have in this example. So skipping past the techniques just for a moment, I have 3 pieces of evidence from this poem because I felt that the first piece of evidence was a good start. The second piece of evidence made my argument, my main idea, more convincing. But then the third piece of evidence really drove that point home. Now, as I have said in class, you don't need to have 3 pieces of evidence at this point. I would be really pleased if you aimed to have 2 different examples to support the one idea, okay? So I've got my 2 quotes here, and I've chosen those because they reiterate that idea that this person, this father figure in the poem, he has a strong sense of who he is. He knows who he is and therefore can feel comfortable with who he is as well. What I've then done, once I've found the quotes that I want to use as evidence for that main point, I've found the techniques which I think are strongest. So techniques that I can actually use to talk about how this quote is communicating this key idea at the top. Okay. In the effect part of my table, this is where I'm starting to put all of the pieces together from these first three rows, sorry. So I've just written dot points. I'm not expecting you to write your paragraphs in these tables, which I think is what a lot of people have done. All I am actually expecting you to do is to write down some dot points about your ideas. So what ideas do you have regarding how different techniques are used in your chosen quotes to communicate the idea that you have written down in your topic sentence or for your topic sentence. So we can see here that I've said that the poet Janetsky uses a pun to play on the words in the phrase keeping up with the Joneses. It tells us that he's so content with who he is that he doesn't feel the need to live up to anyone else's standards. So you can see here I have linked it back to that key idea that he knows who he is, so he already feels a strong sense of belonging because he's just so comfortable with who he is as a person. I've continued this explanation in the next example where visual imagery shows how content he is. I have said that his happiness is juxtaposed or contrasted with his son's unhappiness, and I've actually stated that the son's unhappiness comes from the fact that he didn't know who he was. The point of that long rambling speech was basically just to say that all of these points are focused on the topic sentence. Everything must come back to that key idea in your topic sentence because that is what you're trying to prove. And each topic sentence is part of your overall thesis for your essay, okay? Lastly, the link. So as you can see, It says one must feel a sense of comfort with and acceptance of themselves before they can feel like they actually belong among other people. Again, the linking sentence, I think some people are actually overthinking that. It is actually just reiterating those same ideas in the topic sentence, but I have changed the wording of those ideas because I don't want it to sound repetitive. Essays are extremely repetitive. They are repeating the same ideas. They are presenting evidence and techniques and explanations which all focus on the same idea again and again and again. But the trick with essay writing or speech writing is that you need to find different ways to word it. Okay, so I hope that this video has helped make it a little bit clearer. Just remember that even though this example isn't about the concept of cultural identity, all you need to do is transfer your ideas into your tables. So make sure that you have a strong topic sentence which clearly explains what you think your chosen text is saying about the concept of cultural identity or how it represents the concept of cultural identity. So if you are looking at Please Resist Me, as most of our class are, then you can talk about how it represents Australian cultural identity as being multicultural but conflicted. Or you can talk about how it's connected to our Aboriginal heritage and history. Once you've established what your topic sentence is, what your key idea is, then everything else is really just showing that what you're saying is right. So your examples and your evidence from your poem are going to prove that what you are saying about cultural identity is right. The techniques that you pull out of your examples, those are also going to help you prove that what you're saying in your topic sentence is actually correct. And the explanation, where you really analyze and dissect how language is used in different texts, again, it is all going to prove what you've said in your topic sentence, and of course your linking sentence repeats the ideas that you've had in your topic sentence, so it is also just going to be proving that what you have said up here at the very beginning of that paragraph is actually correct. So I hope that helps. The next video will actually talk about how you can convert your steel tables into a steel paragraph, and I'll explain how you can use some connecting words or phrases to help your ideas flow. Thanks, guys.